So we're gonna start by adding some butter. This is gonna seem like a lot of butter, and it is, but it's one of the reasons that this dish is so tasty. Like butter is actually a huge one of the flavor components in this recipe. So it's really a non-negotiable. I mean, if you want, you could use 5 tablespoons of olive oil, and that would be totally fine. But butter's really gonna give you that amazing flavor. One of the reasons I really love this sauce is it's so simple and it's really tasty. So like, you know how it is when you're exhausted and you're hungry and you need something to eat. And so you go and you grab that bottle of like Prego or Ragu or whatever it is they sell at the grocery store. And I get it. Like I've done that. I've done it fairly recently. But what I try to do now is I take a sauce like this that is so easy and that I can throw on the stove and then walk away and go about my business. And I try to make it in mass. And I start by making a huge amount. And then I just let it cook. I let it cook for, you know, the amount of time that it's supposed to cook, which is 45 minutes. And then it develops like these really deep, beautiful flavors. And they taste way better than the bottled stuff at the grocery store. And then what you do is you freeze it. It's pretty simple. And then it's really no different than buying, you know, canned sauce from the grocery store. And this is even cheaper. Like the cost of those bottles really add up. So if you can make this at home for much cheaper and then freeze it, it's healthier, tastes better, like why not? Alrighty, our butter is melted and it's beginning to fizz a little bit. I wanted to get a little hotter because I really want these onions to really brown, or at least really get like a good fry on for more flavor. I'm actually gonna turn up my burner a little bit. You can see here that the butter is starting to fizzle a little bit. It's good, that means it's actually cooking. You gotta be careful when cooking with butter because if you let it sit long enough, it will burn. But the beginning stage before burning is actually brown butter, which can taste really good. So if you're comfortable with it, like if you want to let your butter fizzle like this for a few minutes and then just wait until it starts to get kind of a nutty aroma, you'll see little tiny brown bits start to appear. As soon as you see those brown bits, that's when you add the onions, because if you let it go even a second or two past that, it'll start to burn, and that burn flavor is like going to get into everything. Alrighty, this looks good. We're going to add our onions. Whoop. And we're going to cook them until they get nice and soft. It's probably going to take about, I don't know, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So we're going to let these cook and then I'll get back to you in 1 second. Alrighty, I've gone ahead and cooked these onions just a little bit. You know, probably 1 minute max is good because they're going to cook for another 45 minutes. So now we're going to add the garlic, and it's really important to add the garlic after you add the onions because if you add garlic to a hot pan, it will burn almost immediately. And that is just not good. So you don't want to add it until it has kind of a buffer, and that buffer happens to be the onions in this case. We're going to let that go and stir for a second. I'm going to turn down my burner because I had turned it all the way up for a second there. You can smell the garlic, you can smell the onion, you can smell the butter, and it smells freaking amazing. Alrighty, the garlic is good. Now we're just going to add the tomatoes. And so these are canned tomatoes. You can absolutely make this with regular tomatoes, like real tomatoes that you peel and de-seed yourself, and they're delicious. But in reality, you know, we're all busy, and ain't no one got time for that. So if you want to use canned tomatoes, that's totally fine. These are actually diced tomatoes that have been fire roasted, so they get a little bit of extra flavor. But you can use any tomatoes you have hanging around. If you have stewed tomatoes or crushed tomatoes, those will work. If you have if they're whole tomatoes, you can just like break them up with your fingers. You can use fire roasted or plain. You can use the ones that come with the hot chilies. You can kind of do whatever you want. Alrighty, so these are in here. It's looking good. And we are going to take a very generous helping of salt because we've learned by now that salt is important, right? And I'm going to put a fairly generous amount of salt in here. And give it a good stir. And that's it. This is going to cook for about 45 minutes, and I'll be back then to show you how it turned out. Our sauce is done. It's been cooking for about 45 minutes, and it smells amazing. You can see how it's thickened up quite a bit. There's not a whole lot of moisture left in here. So what we want to do is we still want to cook the pasta in the sauce. We've got a 1/4 cup of pasta water right here. And the starches in this pasta water, because the pasta's been cooking in the water, are going to, when you pour them in, they're going to make the sauce really silky and really smooth and give it a little bit more body. We're not going to use the whole 1/4 cup. We're just going to pour in a little bit. and see how it looks. I poured in maybe a third of it. So maybe about a tablespoon or two. Get a little bit more moisture in there. I think we might need a little bit more. But what I want to do first is taste this for seasoning, right? Because salting is super important. I say that like I haven't said it 1,000 times, but seriously, salting is so important. That's why I keep repeating myself. Oh, this is amazing. And it is spot on for salt. Holy crap, that's good. We're gonna add a little bit more pasta water. Give it a good stir. And we're gonna add our pasta. Actually gonna put this guy away. I'm gonna add our pasta. This has been cooked to al dente. It's like literally a minute away from being done. It's soft, it's ready to eat. It's just got a little bit of toothsome left in it. And what we're doing is we're cooking the pasta in the sauce so that it absorbs even more of that pasta or saucy flavor, which is why we added the pasta water, because if the sauce is really dry and you add your pasta to it, there's nothing for the pasta to absorb. And in fact, it can actually burn because it's stuck to the bottom of the pan. So that's why you want to keep your pasta water nearby. Just keep it handy in case you notice your sauce drying out. And actually, I'm noticing this drying out a little bit. So I'm going to add just maybe a tablespoon more of water and give it another stir. And we're going to cook this for anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes so that it absorbs more flavor. Alrighty, it's been cooking for about a minute, minute and a half. We're gonna let it sit for another few seconds to really absorb those juices. And you wanna remember when you're stirring this, you wanna be super gentle. Like, you don't wanna use a fork, you don't wanna use a spatula or a paddle to move around the pasta because it'll really mush it up. What you wanna use are these tongs because you can gently pick it up and turn it over and move it. And you can pick up the sauce with it and move it all sort of in like one cohesive mass. You see how it's like blending together and like the sauce is starting to absorb into the pasta. The pasta's getting even darker. And these big chunks of tomato look really beautiful. This sauce smells amazing. I wish you were here to smell it. Also, I want to give a quick note. If you're not into chunky tomatoes, some people aren't, I get it. What you can do is you can actually take the sauce and throw it in a blender before you add the pasta. Blend it to kind of chunky or as smooth as you want. And then throw it back in the pan and then cook the pasta in it. Alrighty, I think we're about done here. I think that looks delicious. So now we're gonna plate it up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a nest. And when you're making a nest with pasta, it's really simple. You get a fork and a spoon, and the bigger the fork and the bigger the spoon, the better. A regular fork and spoon will work fine. If it's like a dinner fork and maybe a tablespoon, but if you have a little bigger one, it makes it a little bit easier to go with it. What you do is you stick your fork in, you give it a little twist, pick up like a big handful of pasta, put it in the spoon, and you twist it. All right, twist it till it picks up all the pasta with it. And come on, there you go. And then you put it in the bowl and you gently slide it off the spoon and then use the spoon to slide it off the fork. And isn't that pretty? And you just keep doing this until you fill up the whole bowl. Again, you grab a big handful of pasta, put it in the spoon, twist it, whoop, bring it over, put it in the bowl, and gently nudge it off the fork. I'm gonna turn off the burner so this doesn't burn while I'm doing this. And you just keep going. And what you end up with is a beautiful plate full of pasta rosettes. I just think it's freaking gorgeous. We're going to, whoop, lost a little piece. We're gonna do this till the bowl is full. Come on. In you go. 4 is nice. I want to finish it with one more in the middle because I'm a fan of asymmetry. When you're plating foods, asymmetry is really, it really is pleasing to the eye. So if you're doing things in like 3, that's really good. If you can't do 3, doing things in 5 works as well. So we're going to put this guy in the middle. And now you've got a beautiful little plate. And I'm going to reach over here and grab my Parmesan cheese. And we're just going to sprinkle a little bit on top. And we want to sprinkle from up high. You don't want to sprinkle from down here because you end up with these weird little spots of just really covered in Parmesan. If you sprinkle from up high, you get more even coverage. And this goes for sprinkling anything, whether it be herbs or powdered sugar or flour. If you sprinkle from up high, you get better coverage. Look at that. How freaking gorgeous is that? I wish you're here to try it, but you're not. Ha ha. Because you'll have to make it yourself. Anyways, like this sauce, like it cooked for 45 minutes, so it sounds like it takes a long time, but it only took like 2 minutes of work. And then I put it on the stove, and then I walked away, and I did other stuff, and I came back, and it was done. It was incredible. So this is probably, like if there is like a deliciousness to like work ratio, this is on the low end of that. Like 6 minutes of work, probably, it's got like 5 hours of flavor. It's delicious.